Good afternoon. It's another Tuesday, and that means it's another episode of COVE Tenant Talks. I'm your host, Kyle Burton, the Tenant Engagement Manager here at COVE, the Center for Ocean Ventures and Entrepreneurship. I'm very excited today for the guest that we have on this episode of Tenant Talks, Alastair Trower, the lead of business development at Enginuity. Welcome, Alastair.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks. Good to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah. I'm 2 coffees in and raring to go.
Fantastic. Looks like you might be working from home or in the office.
No, I'm in the office. Been in the office throughout. I had 1 week at home socially isolated because I managed to have coffee with case number 4 in the province. So we've been in ever since.
Awesome. Fantastic. So let's jump in and let the viewers learn a little bit more about you. What was your background before Enginuity? What did you study? Things like that.
Grew up in the UK, the small village of Cheddar where the cheese originated. Studied geology, which I never used. Went to Argentina, became a cowboy for a year, which was fun. Came back, got a job in a call center, 15 years in enterprise software. Reinvented myself into oceans tech about probably 20 years ago now. Came over to Canada to run Welaptega Marine, which is a successful local mooring integrity company that was founded probably 25 years ago now. I was running business development from my place in France for 5 years and then came over to take on the president role. Did that for a few years. Went through Deepwater Horizon, which was a learning curve for everybody. It was, there's some good beer stories to be had there. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, started working with Enginuity in a sister business. And then started working much more closely with the business, and I'm now running biz dev and part of the senior management team.
Fantastic. And working alongside Ben Garvey, who a lot of people in the ocean tech space would consider a friend and a great partner.
Most people know Ben. If you've been around a boat anywhere recently, then you know Ben. He's a great guy to work with. He and I live on the same street, and we met over a bottle of rum, and that turned into a business relationship. And we haven't looked back. You know, we're in huge growth mode. Have been for a couple of years. We're on track. COVID notwithstanding, we're on track for our 4th doubling this year, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it continues to be a very exciting journey.
Awesome. So. Perhaps we'll pull up your presentation, jump right into what Enginuity is doing, and then at any point, anybody listening can add their questions in the comment section, and we'll get to those live. And we'll start your presentation now, Alf.
Cool. Thanks, man. So, Alastair, Alf, there's a story behind the short name there. We're up on Herring Cove Road. If anyone ventures up this way from the Rotary, we're in the old Canadian Tire building opposite Sobeys. We've got most of the back of the building, and if things continue, we'll be buying the building before long. We moved in here about 2.5 years ago. We were in a house just down the road, and we wanted to stay in the neighborhood. We outgrew the house, and we got to the point where the beer keg was going to be removed from the basement if we didn't move out. So we moved the beer keg, found a building, tripled our space, and that really catalyzed the growth that we're in now. We added a machine shop. We've added an electronics team. We've recently added an automation team. So the growth has really been the last 2 or 3 years. We are a pretty mixed bag of mechanical engineers, technologists, and I'm not sure how I progress these slides. Kyle, I'm not sure if you can do it.
Just click on your...
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry, I've got 3 screens running here. So who are we? We're a mixed bag of mostly engineers, technologists. I'm the only non-engineer in the team, pretty much. We really have 4 strings to our bow: entrepreneur and startup support, and that's really a lot of what we do with COVE. Is we nurture and assist folk like a Novacore on working with the small teams and the startup groups that are in there. I mentioned we've recently launched a robotics and automation team. We've been working with automation and controls for many years. We formalized that last year, so we now have a very robust robotics and automation team. We have the meat and potatoes of what we do, which is service engineering. We have a mechanical group of about 15 people now, And that's really a pinch hitting team for larger businesses. We gap fill for businesses that don't have enough bandwidth, or we provide outsourced engineering for companies that have an engineering problem that needs solving. And then the fourth piece is new product development, and this is part of what we do ourselves. We're ideas folks, so we have a process of validating our own ideas and designing products and moving them out. And we've spun out 2 separate businesses as a result of that process recently. But we also offer that to clients. So people literally walk in through the door with an idea and say, can you make me a prototype? Can you take my existing prototype and make it fully functional? Can you design my product for manufacturing, and so forth? So it's a solid mixed bag. It's fair to say we're not in any one particular bucket. Like most businesses in Atlantic Canada, you have to collaborate to survive. We are very, very open to collaboration, and we work very closely with the universities, with all of the government funding agencies. Obviously with COVE, we have a presence at COVE, and we're working with a lot of the companies that are based over there. And then also marine renewables and Perennia and a few of the other more sector specific trade associations and organizations. I threw a bit of a vomit of people that we work with onto the screen just to give you an idea of the breadth of stuff we're working with. But I mean, just on the oceans front, we're seeing the tidal players. We're seeing established players like Omnitech and AML. We're seeing cannabis in Aqualitas and Zenabis and Organogram. We're working with a lot of startups. Some are very new. So we're working very closely with Assured, for example, with people like Écoutez that you may be familiar with. But then there's also obviously Clearwater. We've done a huge amount of oceans work for them over the years, and we continue to do so. A lot of robotics and automation going on in fish in general these days. So we're working very closely with a lot of those players. And then net new startups, so people like Greenlight Analytical, who are they're designing a cannabis testing system, mostly for law enforcement and cannabis production. So we're working very closely with them. A few other traditional names out there: McKay Meters, Vemco, MetOcean, clearly. It's just a real mixed bag. So I'd love to dive into any questions associated with any of those particular relationships at any point. And next one is, this is I'm using this as an experiment. This is a brand new diagram. We went through an exercise like any business that is growing. We have to continually start looking at ourselves and looking at how we are managing our business, how we're structuring our business. And we sat down about 3 months ago and said, okay, we need an org chart. And we recognize that org charts traditionally are pretty obviously hierarchical by nature, by definition. But we didn't want that. We wanted everybody internally to the business and externally to the business to understand how they were interacting with us. So the only way really from my perspective of doing that is to throw the client right in the middle. We have a very well understood and documented discovery process now that we've worked for several years refining. It's effectively a fixed price engagement whereby we wrap a team around a problem, wrap a team around an issue, wrap a team around a challenge, and break it down, work out its functional blocks, just discover the hell out of it. Ask the silly questions. Can it be designed? Are you breaking the laws of physics? Can it be built for a particular amount of money that you're targeting? It's really basic, back to basics approach to understand a problem. And that's where everything really starts with Enginuity. And then from there, we recognize that, like a lot of businesses, we have a very some people who are very technically oriented, some people who are more project and management oriented. So we split them into programs. We threw every project that we've done over the last 250 odd projects over the last few years that we've done, threw up into the air, and they roughly landed in 4 main piles. So the big government work, the military, the aerospace defense stuff, which requires very solid document control and procedural following, we put those into one program. aerospace and defense. We're doing a lot of automation and robotics work. The buzz term there right now is Industry 4.0. So what does manufacturing and industry look like in 2020, 2030? So we have an Industry 4.0 program. We're doing a lot of development and new products innovation. So we have a product innovation program. The skills and requirements for those folk are very different for the people that we're working with in aerospace and defense. So we have skill sets matched to that. And then the fourth one, and probably the most important for this audience, is industrial and marine. And this is really where we find new machine design in fish processing and automation, new ways of fishing, new ways of gathering data at sea, launch and retrieval systems for AUVs, ASVs, and all of the other yellow stuff that we throw in the big blue wobbly thing. So those are the programs. We have individual program managers for each of those industry segments. And then inside of that, we have technical streams. So we have a very strong mechanical group of about 15 or 16 people now. We have an automations and robotics team of 6 people with 2 open hires. We've got an electronics and design team in-house that we can design from the ground up net new electronics. So these are real capabilities that we throw into projects as needed. And then we have the sort of special services bucket, which is where I would put our advanced engineering folks. So that's people doing finite element analysis, numerical analysis, doing CFD. We've got a CNC machine shop on site. We've got industrial designer on site. We've got a TUV certified safety engineer on site. So we have a team of specialists that we can bring into any project. So that's how we typically structure a working relationship, is we'll have a program manager, and then we'll have probably a technical lead, and then we'll draw on resources from the rest of the business into a virtual team to make sure that we're delivering value in a cost-effective manner. So we'll talk a little bit about process itself. Most things start with client ideas. So most good ideas come from the floor. The guy on the back deck of the boat, the guy in the engine room, the person working in a factory floor setting. They have the ideas. We wrap a discovery process around them so that we can understand budget, schedule, what it is we're designing and how we're designing it, what you've tried before, what failed, what succeeded. Take those lessons and then roll those into a design control plan. Everything starts with conceptual design. Can we prove the concept? Let's do it quickly. Let's do it rapidly. Let's iterate that concept quickly. And let's prove that we can break the back of the problem. There's a stage gate. We then move into preliminary design, where we're actually designing the product or the solution to the problem in more stepwise approach. So we're breaking it down into functional blocks. We're working out what the human interaction requirements are. We're breaking down the electronics requirements, the mechanical design requirements, and we're testing. So each one of these cogs is an iterative process, but each one doesn't move forward until we've satisfied the needs of that stage gate. So those are really good for not only larger projects where we're working within a bigger team, because they need clarity of budget and timeline, but also with entrepreneurs and new product designers, because they have funding milestones, funding targets, and we can align the design and the testing that we're doing up with those milestones. And that process works. We've proven it time and time again, and it's just a very open, very clean way of working. Then, because we are a little bit ADHD as an organization, I mentioned earlier, we have our own spin-outs. So we've got a separate company called CStab.com. There's a few different products in here, and some of these the COVE folk will recognize. You'll have seen me walking around with the C-Lift, which is a mechanical connector for permanent moorings, for launching and releasing, dynamic lifting. And then the C-Snap on the right-hand side, which is more of a hands-on marine ops tool. It's basically an offshore carabiner that's load rated. These are now out in the market. We're working with people like Kraken, with Dive Technologies, with Canadian Hydrographic Service, with McDermott. So we're getting some really good traction with these products now. We're also selling them in a few different jurisdictions. We've had Sea-Lift used in Africa. We've just sold a couple into Holland. So these things are starting to move, and they're proving themselves in a very, very tough operational environment. The next step on this plan is a baby product of the C-Snap, which is an aluminum version. that we're going to be launching on Amazon next week, and next month. And that's much more of a recreational tool. So when you see me walking the floors at COVE, then just grab me and I'll show you the Talon Snap. Is what we're going to be calling it. Because there are just not enough hours in the day. We also launched a medical device business a few years ago. This was a collaboration with a local medic, Dr. Orlando Hung, down at Halifax Infirmary. And this proved fairly useful during the COVID response, because we ended up working fairly closely with the health authority. And that having a background in medical devices and launching medical devices allowed us to respond very quickly to a lot of the needs that the health authority were identifying. So that's us. There you go. I'll tell you it'll be quick, Kyle. So 5 or 6 minutes. There we go.
That's awesome. Thanks very much, Alastair.
No
so people that are watching probably look and see all those company logos that you're working with from different industries like oceans, medical, cannabis, kind of everything in between. Are you seeing certain trends that are going across industries, let's say around automation or different things that Enginuity has witnessed in the last few years?
By far and away, the biggest, I think, is probably the demographic. It's the labor issue and it's the demographic issue that everybody's working with and working against. And we're seeing that in agriculture. We're seeing it in fisheries, both at sea and on land. It's fish processing, food processing in general, in manufacturing. So it's pretty much across the board. And that's really where the automation play comes in. It's, how do I produce more with less because people don't want to be working those jobs? Or how do I improve my output so that I can maintain my competitive advantage by being in Atlantic Canada? And that's obviously a challenge. But we're seeing that there is still a huge amount of manufacturing going on here. And if there is a good thing coming out of COVID, we are seeing the shortening supply chain that has freaked everybody out. There is definitely a boost occurring right now. We're designing and manufacturing gowns here. We're making N95 masks here. We're making test kits here, and I think there is a natural progression. I think this was a shot in the arm for everybody that we need to really focus on manufacturing locally to just de-risk the future.
Very interesting. So we did have a comment come in here through YouTube from our good friends at Kraken. I don't know if you can see that on the screen there, but what would you consider one of your most challenging projects or most satisfying, and why would that be?
I guess one of the banner projects in an ocean setting was the aforementioned Deepwater Horizon. When that first kicked off, I was running a couple of crews in the Gulf of Mexico, and I picked up the phone to one of the guys I knew at BP, who happened to be, and I didn't realize this at the time, but he happened to have been seconded into the Crisis Control Center in Houston. And so I said, look, we have technology. You're working through your sort of initial response and how the hell do you solve this problem? There will be a time where we will be useful. It's not today, but there will be a time. And he said, great, what are you thinking? I gave him some ideas. And he said, okay, I appreciate you're not trying to ram a solution down my throat immediately, but there will come a call. So that call came at about 10 o'clock on a Friday night. I was at the casino watching Dave Gunning and Matt Anderson play. And halfway through the gig, the phone rings, and it's Howard at BP. We need you to move. So we staged 3 crews eventually. We had two people in the Crisis Control Center with their own hard drives running high-level analysis. One of those people is still very heavily involved in the industry here. Most people here will know Marie. And then we had 2 crews offshore. They were doing data acquisition, taking high-resolution photographs, doing 3D photogrammetry of the wellhead. We photographed the BOP up the yin yang. We had the biggest photo library of the entire project, and built these massive photo mosaics of the entire BOP stack. So you had literally a 75 feet high series of posters on the walls of the inquiry that were photos that we'd taken from the ROVs that we were running down there. So there was no summer for me that year, or a lot of the team. But it was just a really good example of teamwork, getting a small business in the mix with some very good, at that point, quite leading technology, but solving a real problem. So that's probably the banner event.
Did you at least get to watch Matt Anderson play later?
I've seen him a few times since. Yeah.
He's pretty good live.
He's very good live.
So if there's any startups or companies looking to build new products listening, why is it important to engage with a group like Enginuity to get that prototyping done right the first time?
The biggest thing from my perspective is something that we've suffered from ourselves, and it's founder bias. When you have a good idea, it's the best idea in the world. And you believe it, and your friends believe it, your mum and dad believe it, your kids believe it, the dog believes it, everybody believes it, because it's you. We work very, very hard to try and not dispel the idea, but to really remove founder bias from the equation. And that was really the sort of nascence of the discovery process. We had people coming through the door with, a mitt full of cash, saying, "I've got a great idea. I've spent 10 years doing my PhD, and I want you to commercialize it. I want you to design my product." And we'd dig in, and we'd have to evaluate after a while that, hang on, there's very low likelihood of success here, because you've defied the laws of physics, or the price point you're aiming for is just unachievable unless you can make this thing out of kryptonite or unobtainium. And so that having that ability to wrap a team around the problem and say, this has got merit, this needs to be tested, this needs to be conceived, and there are ways of doing it. This has been solved in another industry, and we can kind of apply those learnings into your sector, your industry. Those are obviously highly valuable experiences, but equally, it's just oftentimes, if you're an entrepreneur particularly, you don't have all the answers. The ones who recognize they don't have all the answers quickly are the ones who are more likely to succeed. And everybody says, Steve Jobs included, just invest in people that are smarter than you, and wrap them around you, and you do what you're good at. And that's really where we come in on the startup side, is really that kind of coaching role, gap filling. If you want to build your own team, that's cool. Bring them in, bring people in, and we'll nurture them, we'll coach them, we'll fill in those gaps. And then as that skill set builds in your own team, then we'll take a step back, and we'll still be in the background when you need us, but we're there when you need us, and we'll work for you.
Awesome. And then on the flip side, say if there's a larger company that would approach you and they're trying to maybe build a new product line that's totally separate from their main business, it might make sense to engage with a group like Enginuity to kind of challenge that, but also maybe not muddle your core team that's already doing the experts in the field already. Yeah,
there's a bunch of good reasons for doing that. Number one, it keeps us busy, self-serving. But the reality is, if you've got your own engineering team and they're really good at designing, square boxes, don't ask them to design a round box. And quite oftentimes people will come to us and say, okay, we've had 3 or 4 kicks at this. We're not getting the results we need. So can you take it on? Can you kind of take it a step back and, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks? The other one is, the CEO walks in and says, okay, guys, I need 5 new products in the next year. And everybody looks at each other and says, well, we can probably do 1 or 2. And so they, at that point, they hive off a piece of it, or one of them, and give it to us as a challenge. And then the other segment of that is just, if you don't have the skill set in-house. And that's the traditional outsource model. It's, if you don't have someone who can make a video for you, you get a videographer. So it's the same model.
Fantastic. We're kind of running up on time. So I really do appreciate joining me today, Alf. And if people want to get in touch, how can they reach out to you?
So email is alastair@enginuityinc.ca. It's on the screen. 902-818-7799. Come up and see me, 264 Heron Cove Road, or call me at Cove or any establishment serving good beer.
Perfect. And I guess you just launched a new website as well, so they can find out more information there?
Yes, we did. We just went live on Friday with the new website. It's a bit of a departure for us. We've redone some of our messaging. We've made it a lot more sort of search engine friendly. We're doing very well on search engine locally. We want to expand our reach across Atlantic Canada and a little further afield. So we're hoping that will make some difference. And I'd welcome any feedback from anybody's viewings and broken links. We all know what it's like when you launch a new site. So yeah, please feedback.
Fantastic. And I believe you're signed up for the Ocean Connector with us on next Thursday, I believe. So I'll see you there at the very least.
Yep, for sure. Look forward to seeing you face to face.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Nice change. So yeah, thank you very much for joining, and I really appreciate your time. We do this every week, folks, so join us again next week, Tuesday, August 25th. I'm joined by a very exciting guest, Matt Zamola. He's the CEO of an aquaculture artificial intelligence company called Real Data. You can register online at coveocean.com/events. And again, Al, thanks for joining, and everyone watching, have a great week.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate the effort you put in.
Take care.
Talk soon.